Good evening. It's kind of interesting how the schedule worked out because last week I was originally supposed to give the devotional, but I had my wisdom teeth removed. And I remember I informed Adam probably about a month before that. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that. So, just either reschedule me or sub me out. And I remember the Sunday before I was, my wisdom teeth removal, he's like, hey, you're going to be out for that day for sure. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. But I can give it if you want me to. I'm sure it'll be a devotional everyone will be able to remember for sure. But, unfortunately, we didn't have that opportunity, so I do apologize for that. So I kind of want to bring up a story that kind of happened roughly 5 years ago, to kind of introduce the topic. So I don't know why exactly I was thinking about this, but I remember my dog's going to be 5 years old pretty much this fall to be more exact. And I remember the very first day I brought her home, I remember I was sitting in a recliner in her living room at her condo, and she was asleep in my lap. And for whatever reason, she decided to wake up, climb up my arm, and as I have my head rested on the headrest, she slides in between the gap between the headrest and my neck and just decides to fall asleep. So I'm pretty much stuck there for like another hour or two just waiting for her to wake up. I kind of bring this up for a reason because she was probably about like a 8-pound puppy when I brought her home. Now she's 60 pounds, and she will still do that to this very day for whatever reason. Whenever she gets scared or nervous, she'll just climb up on my shoulder blades for whatever reason. You can ask my brother, you can ask my dad. She's, it's kind of a handful at times. So for whatever reason, she kind of connects this area as a place of comfort, a place, a refuge, if you will, for the uncertainty she may be experiencing. And that got me to start thinking, how often do we do this in our lives? Do we ever find ourselves looking for comfort from the stresses that life can bring? Now, usually when I speak, I usually like to have 3 main points, but tonight I kind of have basically 3 questions I would like to pose upon us, as we go throughout this. The first one is, who or what is our refuge? When we experience any form of discomfort, what is the natural thing for us to do? We resort to what's comfortable for us. Usually when people travel, whether it's for work or leisure, what do? They go eat at places they're comfortable with. If you're traveling in the airport, you're probably going to go eat at a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A. Now, there are plenty of restaurants that will actually sell the concept of comfort food, and I guess you could say places like this are attempting to become a refuge for your appetite, but we'll get into that one another time. But oftentimes we look for things to help us get away. I always hear this a lot of times. I hear people say, well, I go to the ball game just to get away from the stresses of life. Or I may read a book just to get my mind off of what's going on. Or some people may say, hey, I play video games just to get over whatever potential stresses school or work or both can bring. Do we come to God as a refuge for our struggles? What does Scripture say about this topic? Psalms chapter 46, verses 1 through 3, again, that's Psalms chapter 46, verses 1 through 3, says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling. Through any discomfort or chaos we might face, there's not anything too big God cannot handle. Why not look to him for our refuge? Second question, during uncomfortable times, is the situation really as bad as we think? Now, I'm sure if somebody were to ask this question, I was in the audience, I would for sure raise my hand. Have we ever looked back at a situation and been like, why'd I get all worked up about that? Why'd I stress out about that? Let me give an example. I started this devotion off with a story about my dog. I'll continue with another one. There's one big thing my dog hates other than thunderstorms and food, and other dogs getting around her food, which I learned the hard way last night through last night's storm. For whatever reason, she hates luggage. Anytime she sees me with a duffel bag or a backpack or, just insert whatever type of luggage, and she's in her cage, she will just start panicking for whatever reason. It's almost as if there's this thought in her head, it's like, where's he going? Why am I not going? And usually it's just like, well, you're coming with me. What are you freaking out about? I've never, left her whatsoever. To me, this is almost like unneeded anxiety. Now, if you will, look at Matthew chapter 6, verses 25 through 34. But more specifically, I want to look at verse 27. Again, that's in Matthew chapter 6, verse 27. It says, and which of you being anxious could add a single hour to his span of life? In essence, when we stress, we waste time and energy. While we can recoup energy, we cannot get back the time we waste. Why waste it being unproductive? And finally, the third and final question I have is, what does the stress we exhibit say about our relationship with God? We are baptized. We put away all things that caused us to sin. We put on Christ in baptism, and we live the life we are called to live. When we have stress, what does that say about our relationship with God? Do we draw closer to Him, or do we draw farther away? This is a true test of trust. When we trust others, there is limited to no stress. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6, my apologies. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6 says, and without faith it is impossible to please Him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that He exists, and He rewards those who seek Him. What is it exactly that could possibly take us away from God? In an ever-changing world, where there are more distractions that could pull us away, what pulls us away from Him? While I was researching this particular point, I've come across a quote from Lou Holtz. It kind of plays into this. He says, it's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it. If we do not draw closer to God when our burdens become too much, they will indeed break us down. So just to kind of wrap up tonight, it's always important to be honest with ourselves. It's important to evaluate ourselves truthfully. Where do we go for our refuge for our stress? Is the stress we experience reasonable? And what does our stress say about our relationship with God? Being able to answer these questions truthfully can make a difference in our relationship with God. So if you would like to draw a closer relationship with God and be baptized, or if you need the prayers of the church, please come.